Welcome to Trading Trends. I'm Julius Spivak, head of Global Macro here at Tasty Live, joined by a very special guest. Rick Rule is with us today. Rick is the voice of the resource investor. Now, my God, going back to 1974, Rick, when you started out here, professionally, Rick was most recently the president and CEO of Sprott, a broker-dealer and asset manager focusing on small-cap natural resources. Since then, the CEO of Rule Investment Media. Rick, welcome.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
I would love, as I was just saying in the green room, to have a long and substantive conversation with you about the Fed and the fate of the dollar and gold. But these markets are moving, and there's a war out there. So let's look at what's going on here now. And I wanted to get your thoughts in particular on something that's been puzzling, I think, a lot of people since this thing started, since we launched this war. The dollar is up and gold is down, which is not what you'd expect, in particular with gold. What's going on here?
Two things. Gold is fulfilling a historic function. As credit markets seize up, when investors that own gold need liquidity, they turn to the asset that they can sell, gold. Today, there was an announcement that the Turkish central bank sold their gold. Why? Because there's no market for Turkish-denominated bonds. They needed the money. Because they had gold, they had the money. The separate and distinct reason is that the US dollar is still the deepest and most liquid currency in the world, and US long-term interest rates are up, making the US dollar more attractive relative to other currencies like the euro. Money flows into the US dollar. The US dollar denominated price of gold falls. Fairly simple. The third reason is we had a hell of a move in gold last year. A hell of a move last year.
We did.
We ran out of buyers and we ran into sellers. That's normal and natural. One further thing before you move me on. That's this. In the last really great bull market we had in gold, the 1970 to 1980 bull market, where the gold price ran from $35 to $850, 4 different times in that decade, the gold price fell by more than 25%. In 1975, it fell by 50% and didn't derail the bull market.
So this is, I think, right where we want to be, because I think the key question then is, obviously gold has had this significant retreat. I would completely agree with you that this is a story about interest rates and sort of the shifting of inflation expectations and what the Fed might do and what the squeeze from oil might do there. If we're looking at gold and saying, right, if our long-term view is constructive, then we have this pullback. I'm assuming you're looking at this as a buying opportunity. So what is the tell? When do you know that this thing is getting ready to come back to the trend that has been with us for decades, really?
The simplest of all answers, I don't know. I save in gold. I don't speculate in gold. I don't invest gold. I have been since the year 2000, maintaining my savings in gold and my liquidity in US dollars. So for that reason, I have no idea how gold wins or loses a beauty contest with other investors. I know I'd like to own more of it. For me, since the gold I have isn't for sale, I welcome lower prices, although I realize I may be different than your existing constituency. One must ask oneself, with debt and deficits in the US dollar, with an inflation rate I suspect much higher than the CPI, whether you would rather own long-dated US debt or whether you would rather own gold yourself as a saver. Once you've come to that conclusion, then you can use the price of gold as opposed to being used by the price of gold. I don't know when, I just know what. And what over time is a much more important thing to know than when.
I would completely agree with that, especially as a global macro type of trader where timing is notoriously awful. And so you just have to you have to have the right idea, and you have to be more right when you're right than you're wrong when you're wrong. I wanted to piggyback on that idea that you just had, that you keep your liquidity in dollars. And just earlier, you said that it makes sense that the dollar is up because, of course, it is the quintessential form of liquidity and cash. So when investors cash out, where do they cash out? They cash out in dollars. makes sense. So when we talk about sort of the long-term story here, obviously the math around US deficits has been very well understood at this point. It's a fairly established view that on the trajectory, it doesn't look sustainable on paper. And so the way that the US government has sort of run this thing, and it's not just the US government, it's all over the world. You see lots of deficits and sort of the sense that it's maybe unsustainable. I think one of the more interesting things in the US is it is the most liquid currency. It is the currency of commerce. And so there is what has been called the exorbitant privilege of the US in terms of there not being really a constituency for a US default, because then the global economy has no medium of exchange and everything stops. So do we in fact have a dollar story that is on some sort of a crisis footing, even though on the numbers that's what it looks like? Or because there is no alternative to the US dollar, is the US government just going to be able to borrow and roll this debt until the end of time?
I don't think until the end of time, but I'm 73 years of age. I think that the US dollar will be the medium of exchange, the world's reserve currency for the balance of my life. But I suspect that US hegemony will decline year by year by year. I suspect that the next 10 years exhibits lots of currency turmoil. I like Doug Casey's quote that the US dollar is the worst currency in the world, with the sole exception of all of the others.
Oh, God, do I agree with that?
Or as he says, the prettiest mare at the slaughterhouse. So I think that investors and speculators for the next 10 years are going to have to be more nimble and more cautious than they've had to be for the last 40 years. Because
And
I
I
think
think
you're going to see volatility and cyclicality in a secular gold bull market and a secular dollar bear market. Make no mistake, I'm not suggesting that the dollar will be relatively weak compared to the euro or the yuan or the yen. I'm
that was
saying
my
it will
next
be
question. That's perfect.
absolutely weak. Absolutely weak. Those are very different terms.
I think that's a critical insight and exactly where I was trying to go. I think you make a very powerful distinction between how the dollar performs against other fiat currencies and how the dollar performs against physical assets. And so if I can just summarize that argument, and you tell me if I'm getting it right, the idea here is that the dollar does well against other currencies for all the reasons that we've just said, but not against physical purchasing power and value. And in your mind, that's gold as the primary vehicle, yes?
Exactly correct. That's why I've chosen to save primarily in gold while I maintain liquidity primarily in the US dollar. People need to adapt this big picture view to their own personal circumstance to make it actionable. As an example, you see me wearing the Battle Bank logo. At Battle Bank, we maintain US domiciled savings deposits in 20 currencies. If your circumstance is, as an example, a first generation US immigrant and you live in two currencies, you have to save in two currencies. There's not a one size fits all to anybody. What people need to understand is the next 10 years are going to be less forgiving than the last 40. And they need to change their response to today's circumstance, a circumstance marked by volatility, by insecurity. I'm not trying to say it's going to be a bad 10 years. It's going to be a very different 10 years. And people need to act in their own interest, in the context of their own portfolio, making the news that's occurring on a global basis relevant to their own family's circumstance, something that we haven't had to do for the last 40 years.